to the embarrassment of those who as yet still have a hint of Catholic sense. There's a new video that's making the rounds on the internet these days, courtesy of the self-described interdenominational Christian convergent community that was founded by Pope Francis' now deceased friend and so-called brother bishop, Tony Palmer. In the video, which is linked below, the Holy Father can be seen meeting with an assortment of heretics. And even though one might be tempted to say that he's holding court with this group, that would be misleading, because the Holy Father appears to be at pains to present himself as but one among equals in that group. See the Vicar of Christ listening attentively as if to be counseled by a heretic, and a layman posing as a bishop, Halloween costume included. It's painful. It's painful indeed, but even more disturbing than that are the Pope's own words. Speaking to the group comprised of people who absolutely refuse to enter the one true Church of Christ, the Pope said, quote, "I am grateful to Archbishop Robert Wise, the impersonator, and to Emiliana, Tony Palmer's widow, who have chosen to carry the torch, this dream which was Tony's, this dream of being able to walk in communion. We are sinning against Christ's will because we continue to focus on our differences. Our shared baptism is more important than our differences," he said. "We all believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." Amazing, is it not, that the Bishop of Rome speaks of walking in communion with heretics, their errors simply cast aside as meaningless differences. And yet, the Society of Pope Pius X, these men who would willingly die a martyr's death to defend the same doctrines that so many in the hierarchy today just deny, these men are treated as if they have no communion at all. It's the height of injustice. But we'll leave that conversation for another day. The Pope went on in this meeting with the heretics to profess words that are truly unworthy of Peter's successor. Words that just 6 short decades ago would have invited a reprimand from the Holy See, or at the very least a demand for an explanation. The Holy Father said, quote, "Everyone has their own identity," referring, of course, to the assortment of error-ridden communities represented in that meeting. "And I assume that each one of us seeks the truth, but while we do that, we should walk together and pray each for each together, and together let's do works of charity together." Together. Did you get that? Now, there can be no doubt whatsoever that Jorge Bergoglio, the individual, just like me, needs prayers as we seek the truth. But let's be clear. For the Vicar of Christ to give the impression that the Holy Catholic Church, over which he reigns, is also seeking the truth along with these heretics, that, my friends, is a heresy. The Church does not seek the truth along with the heretics. She possesses the truth that they and everyone else needs. As the supreme pastor of souls, the Pope has a duty to make it known that those who seek the truth will find it in its fullness in the Holy Catholic Church and nowhere else. We're not talking about style points here, folks. This is his solemn obligation. And please spare me the spineless, sissified excuses about Pope Francis meeting them where they are, as if he's one day going to muster up the wherewithal to teach the truth plainly. 19 months into this pontificate, and I think it's pretty safe to say that Pope Francis does not hold the Catholic faith as it concerns the unity of the Church, not as it's been consistently taught over the centuries by the Sacred Magisterium at any rate. Look, enough is enough. This false ecumenism isn't just a failed pastoral exercise. It's a tool of the devil, period. And those who practice it, like Pope Francis, are doing his bidding, whether they know it or not, by obscuring the reality of Christ's mystical body, the solitary ark of salvation present among us in the Holy Catholic Church alone, from the sight of those who might otherwise enter. As such, there can be no doubt whatsoever that the false ecumenism being practiced, not just by Pope Francis, we're honest about it, but all of his recent predecessors as well, is literally endangering souls. Now, that said, this Pope is indeed taking it to a new level. How many times do we need to hear reports about the Pope encouraging heretics to stay right where they are before we behave as Catholics really ought to behave? And that's to stand up loudly and clearly and say, no, this is not of Christ. And look, some Catholic commentators disagree. They operate on the theory that turning a deaf ear and a blind eye to Pope Francis's various attacks on our Holy Catholic faith is somehow a way of defending the Pope's honor. Well, I have a suggestion for such people. How about defending the honor of all of the popes? Are not all of the holy men who occupied the office of Peter worthy of defending? Take, for example, Carl Keating of Catholic Answers, Now, I happen to know for a fact that Karl Keating is indeed willing to defend the honor of previous popes. And I know that because several months ago he directly engaged some of the things that I had written about Pope John Paul II. Now, did we end up agreeing? Absolutely not. But look, I can at least appreciate the fact that he attempted to defend his legacy by defending his teachings. So the question that I have for Karl is this: how far back are you willing to go? Are you willing to defend the honor and the legacy and the teachings of Leo XIII, Pius X, Benedict XV, for example? Now, assuming the answer is yes, I have a challenge, not just for Karl Keating, but also for Michael Voris and theologians like Jimmy Akin and Marcellino D'Ambrosio and anyone else who has an apostolate that's ordered on defending the Holy Catholic faith. Whether you're a layman or a clergyman, please answer this one simple but very important question. Is Mortalium Animos of Pius XI and his treatment of unity among Christians still the faith of the Holy Catholic Church? Of course, there's any number of other popes who taught well on this topic, but for the sake of simplicity, let's just focus on this one document, a very recent one, Mortalium Animos. It's very important. And so my question is this: is it still the faith of the Catholic Church? I've asked this question of any number of churchmen over the years who were involved in the ecumenical movement, and not one of them has had the common decency to answer it. So, Karl, Michael, Jimmy, Marcellino, and others, what's the answer? What is the answer? If you believe that the answer is no, well then I trust you're going to have some substantial reasons for saying so. Because I'm certain that we all agree that no one has the right to dismiss what was taught very clearly in previous centuries on a mere whim. Now, as for me, I believe wholeheartedly that the answer is a resounding yes. Mortalium Animos is most certainly the faith of the Catholic Church today, as much as it was then. If you agree, then I implore you, do not hide from the plain fact that the teaching that's offered by Pius XI in this document directly condemns what Pope Francis is doing, and has consistently been doing, as, quote, a most grave error by which the foundations of the Catholic faith are completely destroyed. That's what's at stake here, gentlemen. It's not about me versus you. It's about the very foundations of the Catholic faith being under attack. And if the foundations of our faith are being destroyed right before our very eyes, we cannot remain silent. Answer the question. Please engage the conversation. Don't do it for me, but do it as a service to the Catholic Church and to those who look to you for guidance during these very troubling times in which we live. I look forward to the dialogue. I'm Louie Verrecchio.